you can tell us a little bit about yourself, and if you can reflect on those moments when you were looking for a university and you decided to choose Meridian. What was the process like, and how was Meridian standing out for you?
I was working in facilitation, particularly diversity, equity, and inclusion facilitation for a large multinational organization. And we were asked to keep things really, really surface level. I'm a dancer, contemporary dancer, and I make music and write. And those were never ways that I was able to make money. I tried, but it didn't happen. And so was doing this facilitation gig as my day job. And I really love facilitating groups, but everything, because it was in corporate world, was supposed to be very surface. And I knew that that was starting to get really old for me, and that I wanted to be going to a little bit of a much deeper place with people. And so I started looking at grad schools. I had thought about going to grad school I'm really interested in somatics, so particularly for somatic psychotherapy previously, and then had been offered this job and taken it. So I started looking around again, and what excited me about Meridian was that I could tell that there was a pedagogical idea that the school was working with, that was trying to communicate something not just via material, but via process. So what interested me about Meridian was, like the method, the process of learning that the school was interested in. And also, the material, of course, is incredibly interesting, but that was the thing that stood out to me. And then, of course, as well, like the flexibility of the program, the fact that like I'm allowed to do much of the work on my own time and schedule, which as a super busy person, my first year I worked full time while I was going to school and also did my art practices. And now I'm doing my internship and going to school. So I knew that like having that flexibility would be really useful for me.
I'm curious if you can just follow up on what depth means to you and why it is so important to you.
Depth is important to me because it feels like that's the stuff of life to me somehow. And I think that there is a lot of fear around going deep. And I think that's for a really good reason. I mean, I think that we live in a society that doesn't condition us to think that we have safety being vulnerable. And I think vulnerability and togetherness and depth is what a lot of us really crave, but we're not socialized to feel like that's very safe, and we're not put in a lot of circumstances in which it actually is very safe. So I think there's really good reason why people are afraid of depth. And so for me, I'm always asking the question, like, how do I contribute both to spaces like right now as a therapist, like in dyad or in groups? How do I make a container that is as safe as possible? I don't think there's ever full safety in any way. But how do I make a container that's that makes it as possible for vulnerability and depth as I can? And also, how do I contribute to a world that is becoming safer for people to be their full selves? And so for me, that means a lot of anti-oppression work. Like right now, I'm working at an LGBT organization, anti-racism work, anti-ableism work, all very important to me. So I'm always in the field looking at how this field can be more anti-oppression organized. Anti-oppression oriented. I'm always looking for how I can contribute to making the field of psychology more anti-oppression oriented in general, so that my work isn't just about my one-on-one interactions with clients. It's also about shifting the whole paradigm.
Meridian speaks a lot about transformative learning, transformation, and it has to do a lot with a dimension of self-reflection and understanding how theory affects you as a person. And you mentioned the somatic dimension of yourself. I wonder if you can speak to why do you think it is important to pursue an education that transforms you as a person? And how do you feel that Meridian has supported your own transformation process?
Mm-hmm. Well, so for me, the thing that's really special about Meridian's pedagogy is the way that we're given a lot of material to consider. And some of it is really unique material, and some of it is material that would be presented to us, in any, like I'm doing a master's in counseling psychology. It would be presented to me in any master's in counseling psychology program because it's required by the BBS for me to look at and metabolize that material in order to become a licensed marriage and family therapist. And so what's special to me about the way that Meridian structures things is that I'm given that material and then asked to integrate it and think about it through the context of my own lived experience, by telling stories about my own life, by unpacking my own shadows, my own fears, my own complexities. And so I'm always processing my own material by way of having a relationship with the material that I'm given. And being guided through in that way is really special. And it changes the way that I experience that material, because it's not just kind of like scooting by me. It's like I have to develop my own relationship with it. I'm asked to relate it to me, my own life, my own stories, the way my body feels inside. And that completely changes how I experience it and how I will carry it forward. And some of it, I'm like, no, I don't want that material inside me, but a lot of it, I'm like, yeah, I want to take this in. I want to carry this forward. I want to bring this into the therapy room. And as therapists, the thing that we're doing is ourselves. Like we ourselves are the tool that we are bringing in to healing ourselves, the relationship that we make with the client. Those are the things that allow the client to do their own healing, right? We can't do the healing for the client. It's just like our presence and the relationship that we build that is a facilitator for the client to do their own healing for themselves. And I think in the same way, Meridian hands me that opportunity. It's like, here is a container, here's material to interact with, and here's a container where I'm being asked to consider my own life, to reflect on myself, to unpack and kind of organize a lot of things that were maybe in a jumble inside me previously. And then I'm allowed to do my own process around it. And that's the part that feels like the transformation, is that permission to have my own experience of the material and to understand it through the unique lens and body of who I am.
Incredible. That makes me want to transition to the term integral, holistic education, integral education. And I'm wondering if you can share maybe the connection between that place of wisdom that you're experiencing and higher education. How do these things work together? Can they work together? Perhaps even where are the challenges and the growth opportunities, but also why it is so important to have these dimensions work together.
Higher education traditionally often, cuts off the body, and it makes a lot of separation between the mind and the body. And I'm someone who, that's my defense mechanism, is to put everything up here and analyze it all. And so a lot of my work is around actually feeling my feelings somatically in my body. And even after years and years of somatic practice and contemporary dance, I still have that defense mechanism, no matter how far I go into the world of the body. And so I think it's a very tall order for an online school, or any school really, to really tap into the body, and very challenging, I think, to do that inside of all of the constraints of the BBS and you know, being a school that can lead someone to eventually have a license. I think it's very challenging to create something that is a really embodied experience that like fills the whole person. And I see Meridian really working on that by asking us to make art as some of the, as for some of the assignments, for asking us to think about, in general, for asking us to think about our lived experience. I also think like, there's like, there's really cool students at this school. And it's a bummer that I'm not like in class with them in person. And then we like go get dinner afterwards. But at the same time, the online platform allows there to be students from all over the world. And so I have friends who are in my field now who are all over the world. And there's something that feels embodied to me about that, just getting to make those connections and understand what's happening in the field of psychology somewhere across the world from me, because it's expansive. So I think to me, like a holistic or embodied education feels like one that is really expansive. And also, I think the fact that everything in our program in psychology at Meridian is pass-fail, that's a really embodied thing for me, because it means that like I was someone who got like straight A's growing up, and I had felt so much pressure on myself to figure out what the teacher, the professor was expecting of me and deliver that thing. And the fact that it's pass fail allows me to be like, what do I want to get out of this? And how do I get that thing? And the pass fail gives a little room for me, like it gives a little room for my desires to be able to be honored in me because of the way that I function. So I really appreciate that as well. I think the more permission, obviously within a safe, structured container, the more permission for the student to be themselves, to bring their own desires and interests to the learning, the more integral, the more holistic, the more embodied a learning experience is.
If you have any words of wisdom or inspiration that you can share with prospective students that are considering Meridian, perhaps words that you would have liked to hear while you were in the process of searching for a university.
I think that my words of wisdom would be to figure out exactly what you want your plan to be of how you're going to move through the graduate process. And if you're going towards licensure, what does that look like? To figure that out ahead of time, and then like have that map for yourself. And then very early on, maybe even like before you apply, start checking in with Meridian about how you're going to be able to move through that map at the school. So to get as much information, like have your plan be clear and get as much information about all the things. It's very logistical, I think, my advice. All the things that you need to do, because it's very structured, like what we have to do to become licensed therapists. It's like there is an A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way to Z, of all of the things that we have to meet and complete in order to be able to eventually get licensed. So I would say read a bunch about what that pathway looks like, talk to other people who've gone through it, have a map for yourself, and then like be in communication with the school about what you need to do to keep moving along that map, because it can be very overwhelming to have this thing where like the depths of our souls connecting with other people, which is, I think, what therapy is, to have that so regulated by something that's incredibly bureaucratic and logistically demanding. And so if you can kind of have that map, I think it'll free you up to be able to focus your energy as much as possible on the like learning about yourself and learning about building that therapeutic relationship with others. To any new or prospective student would be to build community. It's like therapy, it can be a very solo thing. And it's also a career where a lot of questions are going to come up. And there's a lot of nuance. And so build community, like get supervision, get consultation, like build your community of therapists that you can talk to when there's something that happens that you're like, I'm not sure what to do about this. I don't know if I did the right thing. It's been so useful to me to have people I can go to and talk their ear off about something that I'm working on.